When you hear the word scam, what do you think of? Stay tuned. This episode of the Dollar Saving Divas podcast is brought to you by renttherunway.com.
You'll find more than 200,000 pieces and 400 designers in the Rent the Runway closet. For any event you might be attending, formal, cocktail, or festive, you can get 4 or 8-day designer rentals for a fraction of the price. Anything you want, one flat price.
And when you click the link on our Dollar Saving Divas Facebook page, you'll save even more and help keep this podcast free.
Look great and save money too at renttherunway.com.
Today, we're going to speak with Kip Morris, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau in Central Ohio. Kip, you've been with the Better Business Bureau for 26 years now?
About 26 years, yeah.
Wow.
Hard to believe.
Since you were 3?
Yeah, right.
And I also know you went to Kent State and you graduated with a criminal justice degree. Decided not to be an attorney, but you're going to put all the bad guys away anyway?
Go into the whole scam arena. Yeah. It's kind of happenstance, which I've been trying to explain to my daughters recently, as they decide what they're going to do, that you never know where you might end up. But yeah, that's how it worked out. Well,
I know we're going to do part 1 and part 2, talking about scams. But in part 1 today, we're going to just kind of do an overview of the top 10 most risky scams that have been around since, I think the data says from 2016. So let's just talk a little bit about, scams, what they are, and talk a little bit about those, what to look for.
Well, yeah. So, they're typically going to be utilizing what's the hot topic in the news. They're going to the scam artists know that they're going to try to catch people when they're most vulnerable. So they're going to try to get them to be emotional. They're going to try to get them to be, have concern for a particular demographic, an incident that might have happened. And so most of them fall in line with that. Others fall in line with that you have a particular need, a home improvement, something that needs to happen, and you're kind of stressed about it. And so you feel as though, research and due diligence is a kind of a pain in the neck more than anything else. And so that's where the problem starts kicking in. Well,
I know I had an issue in my family with the Publishers Clearinghouse. And I know right now there's actually a sweepstakes going on. So when things like that occur, that's when scams are going to happen then, kind of those examples, correct?
Oh, yeah. The timing is going to be perfect for that. Everybody, they're getting all the mailings in the mail. And so,
and they're going to win. I know you're going to win.
They put their names into the boxes for the festivals. And so they're thinking, yeah, I entered something. Maybe I did win. Yeah. So that's what
happens. I even remember when I was the director of the mall at Tuttle Crossing, we would have a box and you could, they'd bring a car in and then you could fill out things like that. Well, hopefully we were smart enough that we knew these were legit. But I bet things like that, when you're out in the middle of no man's land or these festivals and things like that, people can just get your information, get your emails, and then all of a sudden you're inundated with all of this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. We've been at trade shows and right next to us in a booth is a big table and they've got the prize giveaways and we just see people coming up and they're just writing their names on anything and everything, filling it out. And we're just looking, going, you are going on a list and you are going to be, approached by every scam that's out there. And that list is going to be sold, over and over and over again. So it's going to go for a long period of time.
Well, that's what happened in our family was, someone thought that they had won the Publishers Clearinghouse and that they were going to get a lot of money. Mm-hmm. They just were supposed to give out their checking account or their savings account so that they could deposit this money in their bank account. Well, that's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden it just kind of snowballs into, did you give them your social security number? Did you this? And then all of a sudden identity theft. And then all of a sudden, you're really messed up for a long time. Sometimes your whole livelihood could be taken away from you.
Well, yeah, and it's as simple as that, that dopamine kicks in, that excitement. Right. You're like, oh, okay, great. And then all of a sudden you stop thinking. You're just not doing anything rational. And you look back on it and go, well, that was dumb. Oh, why did I do all that?
Well, let's talk about the top 10 most risky scams in 2016. I know this is 2017, but I'm sure there are going to be some additions to this. But just kind of go through what the most common ones have been and maybe just a little bit briefly about what those are and maybe so people can know what to look for.
Sure. So home improvement, that's not surprising. It's one of our top inquiries at the BBB. Typically, it's a case where you don't know the individual. You didn't seek them out. They've come to your home, and you end up giving them money up front. They're going to do something for very cheap, and they've done it for a neighbor, and you're going to try to take advantage of it, whether it's tree trimming or it's the paving or it's the some home improvement, some handyman things inside, and you want to get them taken care of, and you say, boy, I didn't have this on my schedule, and I can get this checked off, and next thing you know, you give them $200-300 for supplies. They start to unload some things, do some different things. You go in the house, and then you come out and they're gone.
I remember this. This happens all the time in our neighborhood. Is like, I'm watering the flowers or I'm doing something. All of a sudden, this guy starts walking up my driveway. I immediately run in the house, lock all the doors, and pretend I'm not there. I'm not home.
He just saw you, right?
He just saw me, and it's like, I know he's a scam artist.
Staring
I know
at your
he's
gutters.
Right, exactly. And he goes, I know you need a new roof. No, I just got a new roof last year. I do not need a new roof. Oh, your house needs to be painted. No, I had my house painted 2 years ago, and it's got a guarantee for 14 years. I just, those things drive me crazy. Now, I do remember sometimes they wear like identification. Some people, they are solicitors, actually wear ID. And now if somebody comes to my house and unfortunately I do answer the door for some reason, or I'm standing at the door getting my mail, I do kind of look for that, or I ask them, do you have identification if they're trying to solicit for different things? I always think that's a smart idea. But the best thing I think of is just don't answer the door.
Yeah, and don't always count on those IDs.
Correct, because they're probably fake also, right?
Yeah, they very well could be. So fake checks and money orders. We're seeing a lot of those. The banks obviously see a lot of them and feel very bad because the individuals deposit those thinking that they've gotten an overpayment. Maybe they put something on Craigslist and that they're selling, and all of a sudden the buyer sends them $300 and it was only $200. Oh, my mistake. Could you go ahead and send me back $100?
I'd never send anybody money back to anybody.
It happens.
If you overpay me, you overpay
all
me.
the time.
Oh, my gosh.
Lots of money, big dollar items. And that in particular is tied to a lot of different scams. We see it, relative to job offers, apartment rentals, anything that is done online. And so, yeah, they deposit the check and the bank, takes a couple days to double check and clear that baby. And you've written one of your own checks.
You've already written a check.
And then they say that's bad.
Yeah.
And so you're out that money. Employment. Typically, again, they're vulnerable. They're susceptible. And they see something online and all of a sudden it involves some fees. There's some fees up front. If it's not the fees, then it's the personal information, because you're assuming that if I'm going to apply to something, then they're going to require some personal information. Well, all of a sudden that personal information becomes a social security number and additional information about your family and so forth. And so they're just gathering data that they could use in future scams. And
I've had a lot of those emails that come say, come work for us. You'll make six figures and you'll only work part-time from your home.
Right.
Leslie, do you get any of those?
I get a ton of those.
I mean, I like the six-figure part of it.
I can see how somebody would, well, right, exactly.
Yeah.
You can see how somebody would fall for that or think, wow, this is
And then
awesome. Who doesn't want to work from home? And
Exactly.
Get 6 figures? Yeah.
And I just remember though, then they say something like, send us $350 for your supplies to get you started. It's your get started kit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, get started. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you remember those, remember the little signs that used to be out there, like the old political signs, but they're for work at home.
Oh,
and years
yep.
ago, they were more prevalent before the internet had kicked off because they can use that so much quicker. But we collected hundreds of those, and then we ran a study on all those numbers that were associated with them, and probably 70 or 80% of them were all one scam. So all these different phone numbers, different names, and everything were all tied to one scam. Online purchases. So again, this comes down to the due diligence. I know my wife, she does a lot of surfing. She does a lot of the shopping online. When you start clicking through and you're kind of just evaluating, at some point you get to the point where you don't know who you're actually doing business with. You can't even remember where you started out on that search. That becomes a big problem because then you can start downloading malware onto your computer. You can start doing business with individuals from out of the country that you're not going to receive the merchandise. So online shopping where you haven't done your due diligence, you haven't evaluated the company before you've done business.
I know if somebody calls me or I call them and they don't speak English, I know I'm probably in trouble, right? most likely.
Could be a problem.
Yeah.
In terms of actually being able to check out the reliability of that company or that individual.
I only order from Victoria's Secret, so I know they're legit.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of knockoffs on the Victoria's Secret, right? So make sure it is actually Victoria's Secret.
I make sure it is.
Okay. Not going to ask.
Come on.
So, Kip, tell me. We're talking a lot about these different scams, but who is? And I'm going to interrupt your list, and we'll come back to it. But who's the stereotypical scam victim? Because I think we always think it's the older person at home, the little old lady. But that's not necessarily the case, is it?
No, and we've done a lot of research on that, and come to find that the millennials are the ones that are more susceptible.
Really?
Maybe not to as high a dollar item per scam, but they are the ones that, I look at it as the person that thinks they're a tremendous driver, so they don't think they need to wear a seatbelt. It's the same type of a concept. These folks think that they are so tech savvy, and that they totally understand, shopping with their phone and all the offers coming through on the various things. And so they get a little bit more lax and
Right.
think there's no way I could fall for that.
These are those same kids that are looking at their phone and then walk into a sign on the road, on the
Right.
street, right? Boom. Yeah. Well, wake
Well, I
up.
think we're
Exactly.
conditioned because we're doing our banking on our phone and we do everything on the phone. So you don't think twice about it anymore, like maybe we would have.
Yeah, and and it works both ways. They might be cautious about banking online, but then they get an email that's a bogus email from what looks like their bank, and instead of actually, evaluating it and checking it out, they're playing on their phone and responding to that bogus email.
Well, I know part two of what we're going to be talking about a little bit later is the millennials, and go into a lot more detail on that. So those of you who follow us can either, if you're millennials, you can get some tips, or like I'm a mom, I can give these tips to my daughter.
Yep, I got 3 daughters.
Oh, that's a lot of tips.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And they won't listen to me.
So I saw on your 10 most risky scams the romance scam listed, and
Yeah.
and my eye went right to that one. What is the romance scam?
I hope Tom's not listening. He might be jealous.
Maybe I've been scammed. Maybe he has. I don't know.
It's one of those that you might think is hard to believe, and it's one of those that when you hear the stories, it's shocking. But again, they're preying on people's either loneliness or all the dating websites, and so every one of those dating websites will have some aspect of an individual that's trying to scam people, and so. You have to be very careful. Oftentimes what happens is they'll take the photos and they'll take the information on legitimate people, and they'll try to impersonate them. And so you've got to be just very leery about who you're working with. They start into a relationship, start talking with them and think that they've got a relationship going, and they haven't met them. Next thing you know, they're sending them money. And the person's saying, I'm going to be back in the country very soon. We're going to be getting together, but I've run into some problems. And next thing you know, they're out money.
That's so sad.
It is.
It is sad.
Yeah.
And it
that's
happens
really-
a lot.
That's awful. Yeah. And then there was, I know there's a tech support scam that.
I just got the call at home. They
We
try
talked
to,
about that one.
Yeah, we have. I think I get those like at least once a week.
Yeah, they sound like, I'm from Microsoft. I've got some.
Open up your, computer and screen and give me this and
I'm
do
here
that.
to help you out, and I didn't let him get too far, but I did let him say a few things so I can get an idea of how he was gonna approach it before I called him some names and he hung up.
I know that's what my husband does. He just kind of lets him talk for a while and he goes, "Do you think I'm stupid?" And then he beep, 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 and then hangs up. Yeah.
Very good. And so that's one of those that it's going to be ongoing because people are falling for it. There's a lot of computers out there that have a lot of garbage on them, and so people need some help.
Yeah.
And
Well, Kip, what do you do if you think you've been scammed? Or contacted by a scammer? What can you do if you're in Central Ohio and you're?
Well, you've
what do you do?
you've got the Better Business Bureau here at your service. You can call us up during the business hours, talk through what are you dealing with. Are you out money? The quicker you get to us, the quicker we can find you some assistance. If you wait a couple days, probably aren't going to be able to help you out. Obviously, we want you to use credit cards so that you can dispute some of the issues. But we work with all sorts of law enforcement. The FBI just got done telling us that if they have 48-hour window. If you've wired money overseas or you've wired money into somebody else's bank account, there's 48 hours and then they can't do anything. And so they want to hear from you immediately, especially with the big dollar items. And some of those romance scams are big dollar items and some of the other ones are as well. So contact us. We've got a scam tracker online at the BBB.org. You can let us know what scams are approaching you, even if you didn't fall for it. That's helping educate us so that we can educate our community as to what's being perpetrated out
Well, and the
there.
key is don't be embarrassed. I mean, you
Not at
record it
all.
so you can help people by doing this. I mean, I see news stories and everything. It's like I think every single human being has been scammed at one point.
Oh yeah,
or another.
one in four households and $50 billion. I mean, don't feel bad. I mean, they're approaching everybody. We're all going to get hit at one point in time.
Well, Kip, thanks for being with us, and we'll look forward to part 2.
All right, thank you.
This episode of the Dollar Saving Divas podcast is brought to you by RentTheRunway.com.
You'll find more than 200,000 pieces and 400 designers in the Rent the Runway closet. For any event you might be attending, formal, cocktail, or festive, you can get 4 or 8 day designer rentals for a fraction of the price. Anything you want, one flat price.
And when you click the link on our Dollar Saving Divas Facebook page, you'll save even more and help keep this podcast free.
Look great and save money too at renttherunway.com.
Thanks for listening to the Dollar Saving Divas. If you have ideas for an upcoming episode, we would love to hear from you. Just head to our Facebook page at facebook.com/dollarsavingdivas and share your comments. Our podcast is available on iTunes, iHeartMedia, or your favorite podcast player. Thanks again for listening.
Circle270media.com.